Awesome. Thank you, everybody, for joining me. This is one of my favorite topics because it revolves around research, which I believe is one of the most important things in optimization. And so today we're going to be looking at how to analyze landing pages in 1 hour using Google Analytics. I said 1 hour, but most of what I'm going to show you here you can actually do in less time. So it's like saying 1 hour is actually, giving you a lot of time to do it. I would argue that some of the stuff I'm going to show you can basically do in like 10 minutes if you go through quickly. Being able to do this quite quickly, I think is important because doing research is one of those areas that people seem to struggle with. I understand why. I used to struggle a lot with it too. But if we kind of look at an overall optimization process, this is kind of my simplified version. It's not too different from what most people show, but or what people describe as the process. But one thing here that a point I want to make is that I think a lot of times conducting experiments, running split tests, for example, is kind of what takes up most time, and that's kind of where I used to spend most of my time as well, being excited about doing split tests. Now that I've been doing it for 10 years, this is what gets me fired up, is conducting the research. And I still love split testing. I think it's important. And when I say conduct experiments, it doesn't have to necessarily mean split testing. It's a question of experimenting with what you have learned and what you think is right, testing your hypotheses and so on. But the way I look at it now is that conducting research is the most important part. In my process anyways, this is my experience, because it just makes everything a lot better and a lot easier. It also makes all your experiments better, and it just helps you gain insight and have a more beneficial process. So what I'm saying with conducting research up front is basically you're investing time in understanding your target audience, understanding the situation a lot better. Sometimes you talk to marketers and they go like, well, it seems like such a hassle. I'd rather just assume I'm right. The problem there is then you're relying on basically psychic abilities or gut feeling. I don't have psychic abilities. I don't trust my gut feeling. So that's why I want to do research. There's different opinions on this. Some people think that marketers have to have, a sixth sense and know this stuff. That's not the way I do my work. So just prefacing like that. So the way I like to think of approaching an optimization project, whatever that is, landing pages or whatever it could be, is like kind of putting a puzzle together. So you might have kind of an idea of what the image is going to look like, what the final puzzle is going to look like once you get all the pieces together. And you might have some of the pieces of the puzzle right now. So what we're doing is we're trying to find the missing pieces. We're trying to put it all together. So it's detective work. And obviously research consists of quantitative and qualitative research. So I would argue that both are very, very important. They go hand in hand and they have to support each other because they do fundamentally different things. Quantitative research helps you understand what and where. So for example, by going through analytics, for me, quantitative research is mainly analytics. So by going through analytics, we can understand like stuff like what and where, what's going on and where. So for example, we'll be able to see that users are leaving the landing page without filling the form out, for example. Now we've identified a problem, something is going on, but we don't know why. And that's where we turn to qualitative research to get, the why questions. But today we're obviously going to focus on quantitative research. But my point is, you put both together, and when you have what, where, and why, then you actually have a real hypothesis, and you have something you can start working on. So, yep, today quantitative research. Obviously, it's going to be a little bit simplified because I want to show you some quick analytics tricks. One of the points being, I want to show you how quickly you can do this and get awesome insight. So my rough research process outline here basically consists of 3 steps. And it doesn't matter if it's a full website or it's a landing page, it's the same approach. So first off, I'll do a walkthrough. I'll try to familiarize myself with the funnel. So if it's the landing page, I want to go through the whole funnel. I want to see the ad. I want to click the ad. I want to land on the landing page. I want to try to go through and do it. I call it kind of an empathetic walkthrough because I'm trying to understand the situation that the users are in. I'm trying to, empathize with their situation, understand kind of what they're going through. And after that, I'll jump in and start doing some quantitative research, what and where, and then go to qualitative. Often I will, depending on how much time I have, I might do a little bit of quantitative first, because, for example, if we see that you know, all the action is on mobile, that's where it's at on mobile. That's where we see most conversions, most users, most revenue. Well, then might as well not waste time right away on desktop. Also, sometimes I'll actually have analytics open while I'm doing my walkthrough. So when I have questions, I can jump in and basically ask analytics. So that's kind of the way I think of analytics. Also, is like my little conversion buddy. I can ask analytics questions, you know, when there's stuff I don't understand or I need more insight into. So it's a practical way of thinking about it. So overall, I'd say there's two different, well, we're going through a lot of the same stuff, but there's a little bit different approaches depending on whether, you know, you're looking for insight on a specific landing page, you know which landing page you're going to optimize, and then you have to get a better understanding of that landing page and what goes on. And then there's another kind of angle, which is looking for landing pages to optimize. If you're kind of like looking for opportunities, maybe you have a new client, maybe you got a new job, and you're kind of doing an overall analysis. And we're going to look at both. We'll start with this one, when you kind of know what landing page you want to optimize. So I put together a custom landing page optimization report for you. As you can see, I'm very, very creative when it comes to naming my reports. Aagaard's custom landing page optimization report. Genius title. You have the URL there. So you don't necessarily have to get it now. Wait till afterwards. I'll do a walkthrough of it now. But the point with this one is I'm trying to make it as simple as possible. If you're an advanced analytics user, well, I still think you might get a kick out of this report, because it kind of puts everything together in one place. Well, not everything, but it puts a lot together in one place. If you're new to analytics, this will kind of help you go through stuff quite quickly. Okie dokie. I'm just going to show you. I'm going to jump in and do a live walkthrough of it. But yeah, I'm going to do a live walkthrough of the report in analytics. I'm for this whole webinar, actually, I'm using a demo account Google Analytics that's set up, so you can jump in and see real numbers and stuff without revealing, you know, all your client sensitive information. So before we jump in, I do the live walkthrough of the report. I'm just going to show you the breakdown here. So you'll see there's a couple of tabs up there. So we have one, landing page, device source, second page, exit page, gender, age, and device and browser. And you'll see that the metric groups here are based on sessions, bounce rate, transactions, and e-commerce conversion rate. So if you have e-commerce set up, this will be the way it works out of the box when you download the report that I've shared through the link with you. If you don't have e-commerce set up, you just need to change the goals. So be whatever goal is relevant for you to look at. I'd say look both at the number of completions of the goals and look at the conversion rate, because you have to be a little bit careful with small sample sizes. So if you see a certain conversion rate, it makes a lot of sense to know what that is based on. So you know if you have a decent sample size, or what you're looking at is so small that it's not really meaningful. If you're looking at stuff under, well, that's always, you know, a good question. But if you're looking at something under 100 conversions, I'd be really careful. And ideally, you would want a lot more of that in every single sample. Not everybody has that luxury, though. I'm just going to go through and I'll just show you the dimension drill downs here real quick. So with the first one here, it starts with landing page. So you know which landing page you're looking for. You pick that landing page. And then when you click through, you'll get an overview of device category and source medium. And I'll show you that in more detail in just a second. The next tab here is a second page and exit page. With this one, I'll start you off with device category. Then you'll go to landing page. And when you pick the landing page and click it, then you can go in and see the next page that people go to and where they exit. So I use this a lot because that's one of my main questions, is what happens after people get to the landing page? Where do they go? What do they do? So having the second page kind of helps you get a better understanding of that. And there's some signal value in there. Does everybody go to pricing? Well, then pricing is probably important. Does everybody go, or do a lot of users go to the home page? Maybe they're looking for more information about you, and so on. Are they actually clicking the links you want them to click? And then also the exit page, which kind of helps you understand where they end their journey. Gender and age, again, I'll start you off on device category. Again, these days, it's so important to segment between devices because there is a lot of difference between them. Then you go to landing page, obviously, because that's the one we're looking at, and then you can get into gender and age. So looking at gender and age, I'd say is often important. It gives you a better impression of who you're talking to here, who you're marketing to. And if you're a consultant, for example, this can be really helpful when you start an optimization project. Just having a little bit better image in your mind of who you're trying to reach. And I've gotten some big surprises lately with some clients I've been working for, where I had an assumption in my head about who was, for example, buying on mobile. And in one of the cases, I had an assumption it was like, a lot of young people. And it actually turned out in that case that even the people buying through mobile, most revenue was actually generated from women of the age of 55 to 65. So that was like a big surprise for me. And it was very, very helpful, because that also means that when I want to do, if I want to do, interviews with people in the right target audience, or I want to do usability testing, then I have actually a really good idea of who I should ask, so we can get an accurate understanding. Device and browser. This stuff is more exploratory. Again, it helps you understand like which browsers are people using, what view is it, if you're going to do any Q&A testing, if you're going to do usability testing and so on. It's important to know like which view people have. And also this helps you find potential bugs and errors. So I'm just going to switch my screen real quick here so we can go through the live report. Okay, so here we go. So for example, let's say, and again, this is Google's demo account. So this is just an example, just to show you how to do this. And it'll make more sense once you start going through your own stuff or through your client stuff. But let's look at, for example, this landing page here. It has an e-commerce conversion rate of 11%. That's really high. Interesting. So basically, you jump into it. And then you have the next level here, which gives you an idea of what device performance looks like. So here, it's clearly desktop where the action is at. You see, we actually have a conversion rate here of 0% for mobile and tablet. And also there's very, very little traffic going through here. So if I want to get cracking on some optimization here pretty quickly, obviously you'll see it's a long way to go on mobile and tablet. So for me right now, this is signal that desktop is where it's at, and that's the most interesting one to look at. It doesn't necessarily have to be desktop. It depends on, obviously, on the use case, obviously on the website and the business case. I would say in many cases, when I look at analytics, we're still seeing most action when it comes to purchase and stuff on desktop. I've lately been seeing more accounts where mobile is taken over. But again, this gives you a much better understanding. So for example, if you do if I were to do a walkthrough of these landing pages now to get a better idea of what the whole funnel looks like, I wouldn't start on mobile or tablet and start writing down a bunch of issues there and potential things to solve. I go straight for desktop, because that's where 97% of the sessions are, and that's where 100% of the conversions are. So let's jump into desktop. So now we have an idea of the conversion rate of the landing page. That's important, obviously, so you know kind of what you're trying to optimize, what it's based on. We know a little bit more about devices, where the action is, and what the performance looks like. And now I want to look at different sources. Where's the traffic coming from to this landing page, and how are they converting? So obviously, it's interesting to look at the differences here. Again, be careful when you're looking at small numbers here. 2 conversions here, 14 sessions. Woohoo, we have a really high conversion rate, but this could change drastically just with 1 conversion. So be really careful. The stub off here is a little bit more chunky. And anyways, we have a good idea that the main traffic here is coming from. Again, this is a demo account, so we're not going to read too much into source medium here stuff. What I just want to show you is how to use this, the process. So for example, we know that these 2 channels here, direct and this referral one here is where the bulk of the action is at. Why is this important? Well, it's important maybe because you could see a case where you have a bunch of traffic coming from sources that don't convert. Maybe they shouldn't be there. Maybe it's the wrong place. If you're supposed to only get traffic one source to this landing page, it's pretty important then so the landing page is maybe dedicated for one campaign from one source, and there's other traffic creeping in there, which is hurting the conversion rate. Maybe you need to clean that out. At least you have a better idea of what's going on now when you go through this report here. So let me show you second page, exit page here. I'll just go back. So we start from the top here. So for this one, I'm going to start you off on device, because again, there's a lot of difference between the performance here. This one gives you the overall overview of the website here, all the traffic. And again, we're interested in desktop here. So we go through desktop. So now we've already segmented. We know there's a big difference between performance on devices. So now we're going to have a cleaner view. So let's go into the same landing page we looked at before. So what you're going to see now is an overview of where people go, where users go after they land on the landing page. So not set is always going to be there, because obviously for bounce sessions, people who left the landing page, there is no second page. But otherwise, we'll see the rest here. Interesting here, we're seeing that people are going to sign in. So they must be either logging in or trying to log in. That gives me important insight there. So this looks like maybe returning users are there's a lot of returning users here, for example. But again, knowing where people go for the second page gives you insight. It gives you a deeper understanding of what they're interested in, what might be some concerns and so on. Then you could click on any one of these, and it'll show you then afterwards where people then exited from when they went to that page. And again, so you're piecing it together. So already now you know a lot more about the current state of affairs on the landing page. Device performance. What to look at there. Where people are going after the landing page. How they're exiting the website. So all of a sudden you're building. You're getting more and more pieces of the puzzle, and you're having better understanding of what it looks like, what a real session looks like for users here. Gender and age will be the next tab here you can go through. So let's look at the conversion rate for male and female. It's almost the same here on this particular page. We have more males than females visiting. The conversion rate is almost the same, as you can see here. So sometimes you see differences in the performance. Sometimes you see huge differences, actually. So that's important to know when you dig into it. Again, it gives you just a little bit better understanding of the target audience. And it's not necessarily the most important thing. It might not make a difference here, but at least it gives you a better understanding. And in some cases, if you're specifically targeting a specific gender, for example, with your products, well, then it's really important to know if that's actually going the way you want it to go. So if you click in and look at male gender here, then it'll give you the next view here is a breakdown of age. So again, we can look at what the conversion rate then looks like for different age groups here. And again, this helps you understand your personas better. So in this case, we're seeing that this example, I could have used a better one. We're seeing, not huge sample sizes here, so be really careful with this. Again, just showing you an example. But here we're seeing, let's pretend that, we had more sessions here for good measure. But we're seeing, the age group 25 to 34. That's where we had the highest conversion rate. And the lowest conversion rate we'll see from, 55 to 64. And that's also where we're seeing least sessions. So this gives you a better impression of who you're marketing to here and where there might be some potential issues. Now, the last one I'm going to show you here is device and browser. So again, let's start off on landing page. Well, we'll start with this landing page instead now. We've got the breakdown here, of course. So the reason why it's important to break a browser down by a device category first and foremost is that will give you much more realistic idea about which kind of browsers people are using, because they vary a lot on device. So it's important to slice it there first. Let's go through, let's look at desktop. And then we're going to have operating system as the next level. Again, it gives you a more granular look, and it's important to know, for example, you know, Safari is only on Macintosh and so on. So there are slight differences there. And if you were just looking at browser without operating system, without device, well, that would give you a very, very generalist view. So this gives you a much more granular view and a much better breakdown. So here we're seeing that oh, interesting here. There's actually a huge difference in conversion rate between Macintosh and Windows. So what I'd be interested in here is I'd be interested in going through a Windows machine, for example, and trying to understand if there's something going on, there's something buggy. I wonder, you know, this gives me reason to want to investigate, because we're basically seeing almost the same amount of sessions. The conversion rate is 5.35 on Macintosh, and it's only 0.82 on Windows. So I could dig in and try to get a better understanding here. So I'd find a Windows machine, and then I'd start going through, for example, I'd go through Chrome and Firefox, trying to understand if there's some bugs or something weird going on there. And then obviously the next step here will be your browser version. So in some cases, it's important to know what the browser version is. That will help you get really specific about doing Q&A, for example, on different devices. Okay, I'll jump back here to the presentation. So with that custom report, basically you can go through that, I'd say in 10 minutes. You could go through in less, depending on how many times you've used it. So what I'm saying here is it gives you, this is kind of just a sniper tactic, I'd say. You can go in, you can just find the landing page you want to look at. When you go through these tabs and write down what you see, then you'll in no time have gained a lot of insight. You'll know the overall landing page performance. You'll know the overall device performance. You'll know the overall browser performance. You'll have stats on traffic, conversion rate, transactions, and bounce rate. You'll have insight on how different sources are performing on that landing page. You'll know where people go after they hit the landing page. You know how they exit the website after they land on the landing page. You'll have a good idea of conversion rate performance across gender and age. So you have all of a sudden a very clear idea of the conversion scenario. You'll also have maybe spotted potential bugs by going through different browsers on different devices. Okay, so now we've gone through the custom landing page report, and we have a better idea of how to get insight on a specific landing page that you want to optimize. So let's look at, I'll basically go through a lot of the same things I showed you in the custom report. I'll just show you how to get that out of the standard reports in Google Analytics. So now we're kind of in a situation where we're looking for landing pages that we want to optimize. We're looking for inspiration for where, you know, where to conduct our optimization. So I'm just going to go through some of the standard reports under audience, acquisition, and behavior, and I'm going to show you how to get insight. So let's look at audience first. Well, under audience, you go to demographics, and then one of the things I'd look at, as I mentioned before, is age. So this will give you the overall view of the website and what performance looks like here again. So yep, audience, demographics, age. It's just a few seconds to jump in there. The next one would be gender. If you use a secondary dimension, for example, on gender here, like this, then you can get everything in one granular view. And one thing, for example, that stands out to me here right away, what we're looking for here is basically, you know, outliers, things that look weird. So we're seeing a high conversion rate, the highest conversion rate for men in the age of 35 to 44. And then if we look at the next one under that, men in the age of 18 to 24, which almost gets the same amount of traffic, we're seeing a much, much lower conversion rate of 1.42. So that to me stands out. That seems interesting. That is reason to do some more research there. Or maybe we're just maybe we should target the 18 to 24-year-olds better. Maybe we should start interviewing them or doing some research to better understand them. Or maybe we're actually just really good at targeting people who are a little bit older. Anyways, this is an outlier for me, something more to investigate. And again, also giving you a better idea of what your kind of personas look like. You could go in and have a little look at under Geo-Location. This sometimes can be quite interesting, especially if you're a consultant familiarizing yourself with a client's e-commerce platform, for example. Understanding where the countries are pretty important. So one thing that stands out to me here, for example, is that we're seeing most traffic from the United States, and then we got India, UK, so on, a lot of different countries coming in, but it's North America that has the highest conversion rate. That's basically where the action is at, United States and Canada. It stands out to me that, for example, the United Kingdom, we're not seeing any conversions there. So again, reason to investigate a bit, or at least it gives you an idea that the audience here. So we're looking at the highest converting segment. That would then be, you know, young men from the United States or Canada. Again, I just want to say, just to make it clear, in this case, it turns out that, you know, the highest conversion rate was on men. I've seen many different cases, as I mentioned before. There was a case where it turned out that it was women between the age of like 55 to 65 that were putting down way most money. So it's, in some cases, it can give you some good insight. The next one I just have a quick look at here is under behavior. Again, under audience, and look at new versus returning. So to me, this one is quite interesting. Now, something stands out to me here. First of all, we have way more new users than we have returning. However, if we look at revenue and conversion rate, you'll see that the conversion rate is way higher for returning users. And also we have way more revenue. Even though we have much less traffic, it's making way more revenue based on only just about 20% of the traffic. So to me, this stands out, and I would do some more investigating there, try to understand why this is. Are they logging in? Is that why? And also, how can we get more returning users to come back? Because they're much, much, much more likely to convert here. Another thing it might mean is that maybe it takes several visits for people to convert. Under mobile, you can go into overview here, just get some quick insight again on mobile performance. Important stuff to understand site-wide. Let's look at acquisition here real quick. So one of the things I'd look at here as one of the first things is all traffic. Then I look at source medium, and I try to get an idea of, you know, different performance here. So one thing that stands out to me is that the second highest volume of traffic comes from YouTube referral. However, we're seeing a pathetic conversion rate of 0.01% here. That's not a lot. If you just compare it to direct, for example, there's a big difference. So that to me is kind of a danger signal. And I'm like, this is not good. If the client here, for example, is spending money on YouTube ads, it's not converting and they're just burning money here. So then we could jump in, just get a little bit better understanding here. So what I've done here is I've gone into that one landing page, I've clicked it, and then as a secondary dimension, I've added landing page. So now this gives me a view where I've gotten the source broken down on landing page, and then I can start understanding where's the traffic hitting and what could be some potential issues here. Well, now we have one main landing page here, and it's not doing well. We have some drip traffic going other places, but none of it is really converting. So what I'd do then is I would go to that landing page and I'll start trying to figure out, like, what the hell is wrong? Is there a bug? What's going on? Is it just completely irrelevant? A completely irrelevant landing page as compared to what you saw in the ad or whatever it was you clicked on YouTube. Some of the danger signals, some of the stuff I'm looking for would be a case like this, where you're seeing, for example, Facebook traffic here. We're getting, you know, a good amount of traffic here. We're paying for it. And we see a bounce rate of 91%. Yeah, and we're seeing like two transactions, we're seeing a very low conversion rate of 0.02%. So this to me is like, a monster dangerous signal when you see something like this. So people discuss bounce rate. What does it mean? And is it a vanity metric? It depends on how you use it. But one thing is for sure, if you're sending paid traffic to a landing page, you don't want a bounce rate of 90%. That means that like almost all your users are just seeing that one page and then they're leaving again. That's all they do. So sometimes for a blog post, something like that, it's fine to have a high bounce rate. People got what they wanted. But if you want people to go further down the funnel, yeah, a bounce rate of 91% is not good. So this to me right away tells me losing money, we can make a big difference here. And it might even just be a small, it might be a bug or something like that. That's killing everything. If we can unclog that, we might be able to recover a lot of money really quickly. Last one we'll look at real quick here is behavior. And I'm just going to show you one report here really, and that's under behavior. You go to site content, then you go to landing pages. So this is your overall landing page report. And again, I'm looking at things that stand out here. So for example, we have a landing page here. The fifth one here, we're seeing a really high conversion rate of 13.39. And then we're seeing, this is the YouTube one I showed you before. Or sorry, yes, this is the landing page for the YouTube stuff I showed before. And we have a really low conversion rate there. So to me, these are two extremes. And also, if you're looking at the amount of revenue here, you'll see the landing page on number 2, it gets 20,000 sessions and it's made like $3,000. And then you look at the one on position 5, it's got 1,852 sessions, but it's made 82,000 bucks. So that's a huge difference. So I want to understand better, why is that one converting much better than the other one? Why is the other one doing so bad? Gives you an opportunity to jump in there. So basically now also you know which landing page you want to have a closer look at. So you could basically just take this URL and go to your custom report that I built for you. You could pop it in there, and then very quickly you'll be able to go through the different tabs and get all the insight I showed you before. One thing I want to show you here quickly is if you click on the landing page here, in the landing page report, then the next screen you get to has entrance paths. This is a sneaky little report that not too many people use. I built this into the custom report also. I just wanted to show you how you can get it from the standard report. So when you click entrance path, this gives you the second page that people go to after the landing page. And if you click that page, the second page will also show you the exit page. So for this one, for example, we're seeing, 44% of sessions are going to sign in. So we also know that, returning users are converting at a higher rate than new users. So now we're starting to piece together, some pieces of the puzzle. We're saying, aha, so maybe this is actually because we have a lot of returning users on this page, and we're seeing them go to sign in, and then they convert higher. So again, you're piecing together more and more bits, and you're getting a better impression of what's really going on here. So, sorry, my voice. So my point here is, instead of just looking at a landing page and going, I wonder what's going on here, is saying, well, the mobile revolution has happened, so obviously we have to optimize mobile, and just going out on a limb and starting a split test or something, or just making the landing page prettier, it's really, it's a very kind of superficial approach, and it's very much based on just assuming that what you're doing is right. So doing it, just a little bit of exercises like this gives you a much better understanding. So all of a sudden you're like, okay, I know this is the device I have to focus on. I know that this is the landing page I have to focus on. I know that this is the browser that people are looking at. This is the one I have to focus on. Maybe I know that these other browsers are underperforming. I have to do some more research to understand why. I know where people are going after the landing page. I know how they're exiting. I know which age I have to look at, I know a gender, and so on. So all of a sudden you have all this insight that just helps you make a lot better decisions. So again, I said time spent 1 hour. I'd say 1 hour tops. You can do it quicker than that too, depending on which one you use. And again, just a quick summary here of the insights you can get real quick. overall landing page performance, overall device performance, overall browser performance, traffic, conversion rate, transactions, bounce rate. All that stuff is really important to know before you start optimizing or testing. You need to know what you're trying to make better before you can make it better. And you have insight on different sources, on the second page, people going to exit page, gender, age. And also you have a good idea of potential bugs that you might have to fix. One note on bugs, I think in many cases here, this is not really seen as part of optimization. You know, a lot of people think that it has to be a split test, for example, before there's any value in it. I'd say that's absolutely wrong. Part of your job as an optimizer is to find stuff like that. One of the points being, you could spend a lot of time trying to optimize a landing page and not getting anywhere because the problem might be further down the funnel. People can't check out, for example, or maybe there's, you know, a bug in the main mobile browser that people are using. So you have to understand that, you have to unplug that in order to kind of open the gates, and then you can start seeing results from the landing page optimization you're doing. So you really need to have a much better, deeper understanding of the whole funnel before it really makes sense to start optimizing and to start running tests. Again, people have a tendency to say this takes too long, it's too complicated. I say you're investing time up front, and that will save you a lot of time down the line, because otherwise you're basically relying on your gut feeling and guesswork. And sometimes that works, and then that's great. You know, you were right in the first case. You tested it, it looks like it works. The problem is when you're not right, what do you do then? Well, then you're left at, you know, basically square zero. You're left to your own devices, and you have to figure out, oh, I wonder why it didn't work. When you have all this insight, then even if the test didn't work, well, then you have a very, very clear idea of why. You have a much more refined hypothesis. And then also you can say, okay, so this documented approach didn't work. Let's do this instead. Real quick, just want to go through the simplified kind of approach to research here. I do start with a walkthrough, familiarize myself with it. I want to see the ad. I want to click the ad. I want to land on the landing page. I want to try to go through the whole thing. If it's e-commerce, for example, I'm going to go through the whole funnel. I'm going to make notes. I'm not trying to be like a marketing expert or CRO person while I'm doing that. I'm just trying to be a normal human being. I'm trying to understand where do I get confused? Where do I feel, you know, pain in my brain or whatever? Where do I get frustrated? Where do I see issues that are hard to get through? Then I jump in and I start doing quantitative research. I just showed you how quickly you can do that. And after that, then you turn to qualitative research. So all of this is really important. Today, I only showed you a little bit of it. And obviously, this is a free webinar. And I give you the custom report here you can download and start using on your own website. But what I want to say is, obviously, there's a much bigger process here. And one of the reasons why we're doing this free webinar here obviously stands alone, but it's also to pitch, to make you aware of a landing page course that I'm doing for CXL Institute, and we're kicking it off next week. It's 8 lessons over 4 weeks, starting June 5th. There's 2 URLs here. The shortened one will take you straight to the landing page here, or otherwise you can go to the CXL Institute and check it out. So what I'll be doing in these 8 lessons is basically taking you through the whole process. So we'll be looking at understanding the whole landing page scenario, the whole landing page experience, the whole funnel. We'll be talking about psychology, neuroscience, wireframing, copywriting, design, qualitative research, quantitative research, and we'll be putting it all together. So if you're interested in, you know, learning a lot more about landing page optimization, the whole process, yeah, I would invite you to take the course. It's a live course, so we'll be doing live lessons for each one of them. Okay, thank you very, very much for watching. I appreciate it. And I think we might have a little bit of time for some Q&A here. And I think there was a question here. I'm not sure I quite understand this question. Which method is better, advertise a category or make a landing page and try to optimize it? I actually don't understand the question here. I think, well, you need both. I mean, when you start doing an ad campaign, you will obviously need a landing page from the beginning, and then I would try to go through and get as much insight as possible, as I was showing you now, the more general stuff, not the custom report, and just get a much better idea of what's going on right now. What does it look like? And then from there, I try to build the best possible landing page with the insight I have. And then from there, I'd start optimizing. And so research, you keep on doing research basically forever. You never stop. All right. Yeah, sampling. Yeah, sampling is an issue. It's hell. I hate it. It is a problem. I don't have a good solution for it other than paying for Google Analytics. There's APIs you can use, obviously, that can pull the data and try to avoid sampling. You can Google that. There's a bunch of different ones. I believe that Charles Meaden has one of the really good ones there. Joshua Curran used to have a good API tool. It'll make everything a bit more complicated. You can get the same data, but you can pull it via an API and try to avoid sampling. But sampling is an issue, and you have to be careful. And when you're looking at data like that, then yeah, just really look at how much is sampling it. And if you're at a 30% sampling rate, you have to be careful. You have to take it with a grain of salt. But on the other hand, what I'd say with some of this analytics stuff here is, sometimes you're trying to get signal values. So you don't have to basically see this as the holy grail and the eternal truth, but you're trying to get some signal values when you're going through it. And you're trying to understand maybe just some ballpark numbers. How does Google know the gender? Okay, yeah, that's a good question. So with demographics, you have to be careful with some of it. You have to be careful with interest and so on. But Google pulls a lot of information from, for example, being logged in. Different accounts and so on. So they have a pretty accurate representation of gender and age. Now we have GDPR, so we'll see how long we'll be able to get that data. We have it right now. You will get a recorded version of the webinar. You'll get the slide deck too. Why am I tracking sessions why are you tracking sessions, not users? Okay, that's a good question. Well, because most of this stuff I've been showing you is session-based reports. When you look at landing pages, look at e-commerce rates, for example, e-commerce conversion rate, both of those are session-based reports. If you do a custom report with landing page numbers and you use users as a main metric, you have to be really, really careful, because then it's going to give you a distorted view. So that's one of the things in analytics that can confuse people, which is worth reading up on. What is the difference between users, sessions, and page views? I would prefer if everything was based on users. That's one of the reasons why I like Kissmetrics, because it's basically a user-based analytics program. It gives you a whole plethora of other things that are frustrating, and Google Analytics is frustrating in its own way. So we don't have perfect analytics tools yet. But obviously there's some views where it's better to use page. For example, if you go or user data. Will you be sharing? Yes. Yeah. The presentation will be shared, and you got the URL in there, so you can get it quickly in the report. Yep, the report link is there. Okay, yeah. Which time span do you select when you do this kind of analysis? 1 month, 1 year? Well, it depends on a couple of different things. It depends on how much traffic you have, obviously, and like you're saying, you try to avoid sampling. So it has to be meaningful, obviously. So I wouldn't look at just a couple of days. That can be really dangerous. I probably wouldn't look at a week. I try to look at a month. But then again, in some cases you want to, like if you're looking at several months, you just want to make sure that what you're seeing makes sense. So you might want to just do a little double check there and see, is this traffic consistent over, the whole month I'm looking at, or was there a peak? If there's just like this one campaign blip, then you have to be careful. Also, if you're doing it a little bit more advanced in the sense that you're doing pre-calculations to figure out how long time to run a split test, or which landing pages there's actually traffic to work with consistently, you want to make sure there's not just this one little blip. You want to make sure that traffic is also going to be there going forward. But it really does depend, and in some cases you might, on low traffic websites, you have to go to a much longer period to get you know, data that's really meaningful. So it can become a bit tricky. So it really does depend. Yeah, and yeah, and obviously, like you said, you avoid GA sampling and try to pick an average month, obviously. Uh, Revenue value per session depends on how you set it up. If you have set it up, it can be it can give you a good impression. If you see a huge discrepancy there, it's not the main metric I look at, but it's another one of those things that gives you a clue. It kind of depends on the scenario and also what you've agreed with the client. Do you think it's better in order to report SEO campaigns to take this metric, or is it better to report page views? Yeah, so it depends on what kind of report you're using. So I would just one of the cool things about Google Analytics is that because it's a Google product, you can Google a lot of answers, and there's so many guides out there, and even just Google's own documentation. So I think it depends on what you're looking at, and also it depends on what you're interested in seeing, and it depends on you know, whether it's a blog or an e-commerce website, and it also depends on your process and what you've agreed with your client. I would say in many cases, users and sessions are the most valuable. But again, I don't do a lot of SEO, so I'd have to be careful what I'm saying. There's a moonshine in that jar. Obviously, that's why I'm speaking so fast. Okay, let's do just a couple more questions. How to analyze landing pages in 1 hour? Do 0 for 10 years. Step 2, and profit. So yeah, maybe he's making fun of me. Maybe it's a critique that this is not very actionable because you have to do it for 10 years for any of this to make sense. I would love to get some feedback on that. Are these metrics important for SEO too? Well, as I said before, I'm not an SEO guy. I don't know a lot about it, but I'd say a lot of these are important as far as, you know, figuring out you know, you can use a lot of this stuff as well for your SEO purposes if you want to figure out like which landing pages does it actually make sense to drive traffic to, what kind of content. You can get a lot of inspiration from looking at, for example, the paid campaigns. Can you show how you built that entrance path? So when I showed you the out of the box landing page report, it's there. You just basically click the landing page and then you'll see entrance path. You just click that. In the custom report, I recreated that. If you download the custom report and just click edit, it'll show you, and it'll show you how I set it up there. Are there any good resources on how to use the behavior flow report? I would just Google it. I know Craig Sullivan, my good friend and mentor. He talks a lot about that. So maybe you could. He's done a bunch of content on Medium. So you could, for example, search Craig Sullivan GA behavior flow or something like that. I think you'll find something there. Okay, thank you, Pavel. Not making fun, the opposite. Well, thank you very much. That's very nice of you. I appreciate it. Okay, so let's see. All right, so we're almost done here. There's some feedback from Anthony. I'm seeing some great stuff straight away with this report. Thanks. Awesome. Thank you so much, guys. Thank you very much for joining. Thank you very much for being part of this. You know, you can feel free to reach out to me. You know, here's some of my contact information. I know this looks like an amateur email. I left the company I was working for not too long ago, and this was just going to be a temporary email, but now it's ended up being my permanent one. Never mind that. So please, you know, reach out to me if you have any questions about this stuff. If you start using the report and you see some good or bad results, please, I'd love to hear some feedback. And one last time, check out the course if you want to learn more about this. Thank you very much. Have a fantastic weekend.